All right, it's now live. All right, so we are here again with another episode of In Between. Very excited to sort of evolve like the format a bit to have more of a focus on the topics that we do, but also be able to go a bit more in depth in some of the topics. And for the topic today, we have a guest amongst us who's gonna probably share some of his own thoughts. So, Karthik, like probably you can introduce yourself a bit so that people who are listening to us can sort of understand who you are.
Right. So hi to the listeners of In Between. So my name is Karthik. So Karthik Kannan, and I think I'm one of the co-founders of Envision, along with the other Karthik, so Karthik Mahadevan. So we both, are the founders of Envision, and personally, I do a lot of the tech stuff at Envision. So my interest is predominantly lying in tech, specifically computer vision, and sort of like deep learning, or what we call AI as a whole. That's sort of like where my interest is. But yeah, specifically with regards to computer vision. So that's me.
And the reason that we have you on is because we have been you're reading about this thing online called GPT-3.
Yeah.
It's been popping up all over your like Twitter feed. We have been able to see some insane examples of like what is possible. So yeah, we just thought it could be like a learning experience for us to really understand what is GPT-3, what's the tech behind it, and what can we expect from it. Like what could this imply, and how much of it is hype, and how much of it is actually the breakthrough stuff.
Right. I think so. GPT-3 is so GPT itself. Let me start with what is like sort of GPT for like people who don't really know what it is about and why it's like so exciting right now, and whether it's hype or not is something that we talk about it as well, and what you can actually do with it. That's also like super exciting. So GPT was actually a paper published by this company called OpenAI. So OpenAI is a company that was founded by Elon Musk and a few other people to really sort of advance the understanding of AI itself, and to make AI something that we can understand and also use for the better, right? And in AI, generally today, there are two sort of areas of AI that are like really exciting. So one is computer vision. So really allowing, computers to understand things that they see around and react to it, right? Then there is natural language processing. So, taking something to do with language, and then really trying to understand and manipulate language like how we humans do, right? So these are the two areas of AI that's like really exciting. And for the longest time, computer vision was the one that was getting a lot of attention and a lot of breakthroughs, because it all started in 2012, where there was this landmark paper that was published. After that, computer vision really took off, and then all of a sudden now you have things like your Snapchat filters, your Instagram filters. You have people doing face recognition. All of that is sort of exploded in the last sort of 5 years, 10 years. But natural language processing wasn't really like going where it should be. So there was some things that natural language processing was doing really well. Like, for example, given a sentence, you can identify what is like the subject and the predicate, doing all those things, or even named entity recognition, where it can find out if an entity is something that's important in a sentence or not, and then try to understand it. Or summarization, right? Like you give it a paragraph, it'll summarize it in like 5 or 10 sentences. And then so those were some of the simpler things that was happening. But like nothing really exciting was happening in that space until last year, and OpenAI came out with GPT-2. Okay, they called it GPT-2. It was really weird, the naming itself, but yeah, it was GPT-2, and GPT-2 was actually a very, very exciting thing that happened then. Like, I think now the reason why GPT-3 is very exciting is because people have an access, like an API access to it, so people can actually like play around with GPT-3. But GPT-2 was actually the one that changed it all, like, and so much so that OpenAI refused to actually release the paper for GPT-2. They said, if we release the paper, we don't know what kind of malicious shit people will come up with. So we're not going to release the paper. We're only going to release the results. And that's how it's going to be. They were really, yeah.
So only to back up a bit. So a GPT is basically you're focusing on only on NLP, which is natural language processing, which in essence is if you have an instruction or a command that a human is giving, how much of it is a machine is able to understand and is able to take action on it. That's basically what NLP would be.
Exactly, right? So like when you go and tell your Alexa, your Google Home, or your Siri that, hey Siri, what's the weather like today? That's all NLP that's actually working there, right? And GPT is specifically focusing on this thing called text generation. It's not focused on anything else. It's specifically focused on text generation. So it's going to be used in chatbots. It's going to be used in those answering machines. So those are the things that GPT would be used in, right? And Google felt that, okay, if we put this out tomorrow, someone can, write something that's very, very similar to, say, I don't know, like a Barack Obama speech or like something else. And you would be able to like manipulate things on the internet that way. So they didn't put it out. But then a lot of people in the AI community felt like, you know what, you can't say you've done this really cool thing and you've advanced the state of the art and not put it out. Like you have to come out in the open and then share your results, share the models that you're having with us. And then we believe that your intentions are good. And so GPT did that, GPT-2 did that, and they made it, and it became like a big thing amongst the people who were in the community, in machine learning AI community. It was a big thing. And GPT-3 is the next version of GPT-2, which is basically, so much better than the existing model, GPT-2. And it's able to learn from fewer examples than GPT-2, and it's able to do a much, much, much better job than GPT-2. So it's actually an improvement, but it's such a significant improvement that OpenAI decided to like see if what kind of applications people are going to build on it. And that's why it's so exciting, like the whole thing.
Interesting. And is the reason for improvement, do you think, is it access to like a database, or so what do you think has been the contributing factor to such a big improvement in that?
I think, the thing is, OpenAI actually did some pretty significant algorithm improvements. That's also something that, I've come to understand, from GPT, like from GPT-2 to GPT-3. But a lot of what, is good with GPT-3 is the size of the model itself, So GPT-3 used a lot more training power than GPT-2. Like I think they spent like, I don't know, $5 million or something in just training GPT-3, So they really have put like an extraordinary amount of money into that and time into that. So I think it is not just to do with data, it's also to do with the computing power that they used to actually train GPT-3 versus GPT-2, along with some improvements to the underlying model itself, like some scientific improvements to it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I think what OpenAI decided to do was to see how well GPT-2 would be received, and then try to put more money into GPT-3 when the time came around for the development. So that's basically the idea, because the model is massive, and that's the reason why they don't give you like the model itself, but they're giving you like an API with which you can access the model,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I do have a question regarding probably some kind of applications. Maybe you could point out that people came up with, maybe with GPT-2 and 3.
Yeah. I think GPT-2, I think people still did like chatbot stuff, and people trained it on trying to generate Shakespeare, from his previous works and stuff. GPT-3, because of the fact that, it's so widely available as an API and anyone can apply for it and use it with an application, I'm seeing some really, really cool stuff. Like, for example, they have I saw a particular application which they've trained Elon Musk and Aristotle and all of these guys, and you can ask them to explain topics like how Elon Musk would explain a topic to you, or you can ask, like philosophical questions, like, and get an explanation as to how Aristotle would explain it to you, right? And the thing with GPT-3, also like the big thing is it's such a fundamental shift in the way we access AI now, because earlier, like, let's say we want to, like, I don't know, train like a image classification model for, I don't know, detecting currencies, like at Envision or whatever, right? We had to get like tens of thousands of images and then train it through this model and then get the final output out, right? With GPT-2, you don't have to, GPT-3, you don't have to do that. You just have to prime it, give it very few examples of the stuff that you want, right? For it to generate, and then it gets going right away, So that's actually the big, more than the text, more than all the fancy stuff that people are doing with it. This is a landmark shift, I feel, in AI, where you don't have to have so much training data anymore. You have a really good model that can generalize, and then you just give it some data to prime the model, and then boom, you start having like all this really cool stuff come out of it, Yeah.
Awesome. I actually want to like share my screen so that you can actually check out some of the examples.
Yeah.
So like before that, I just want to get some of the technical stuff in that I didn't understand. I thought I want to get your opinion on. So one of the things I read, it said that so the big with a sort of improvement with the GPT-3 is that it is made up of 175 billion parameters, as opposed to GPT-2, which was actually made up of 1.5 billion parameters.
Yeah.
What does this mean?
So I think it's basically to give you a sense of how big and sophisticated the model is. That's just a very simple explanation of the parameter number, right? So the more parameters you have, the bigger your model is, right? And the bigger your model is, the more sophisticated it is. So like, imagine it's like, you want to get some task done, right? Like, maybe make a summary of a paper or something, right? And then you give it to like two people who are working side by side to make a summary of that paper. You say, okay, it's going to take you this much time to, like, I don't know, 2 hours to make the summary. But at the same time, if you give it to, say, a group of like 10 people to go ahead and make a summary of that paper, right? They'll be able to probably go do it in like 20 minutes or so, right? So, and they're going to do a better job at it because there are more people, or theoretically, they're going to do a better job because there are more people, more thinking heads. That's what you got to think about as parameters, right? So it's just more thinking heads in the model to get the work done, right? Then it shows how big it is in size. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. So some of the examples I wanted to jump into. So like in addition to stuff that you said where it can do Elon Musk and like Shakespeare, I think the stuff that I was very excited about was the ability for it to create stuff that will make a job for the people actually easier.
Yeah.
For example, I saw this example where it was actually able to, you can actually give it instructions for exactly what you want to do, like a design of in like Figma, and it will go ahead and it will take in all of that instructions and it will actually build a prototype for you on Figma. So for example, this guy is putting that he's building an app that has a navigation bar with the camera icon, photos title, a message icon, and a feed of photos, with each photo having a user icon, a photo, like a heart icon, and a chat bubble icon. That's sort of the input that he gave, and then boom, like you actually get an Instagram prototype, for you that like is built just with a few of sentences that he put in. So this is impressive. So can you sort of like talk us through like at what point is the API being actually used and how is this actually being done behind the scenes?
So I think everything that you're seeing here is really the API at work, right? So the first thing that you would need to do is sort of prime the API with some examples, right? Don't have to give it too many examples. That's also one of the problems I have a lot with the prototypes that people are building. I'll come to it a little later when you're talking about the hype versus thingy, right? But just thinking about the applications that we're seeing right now, they usually prime it with a few examples of, hey, this is what, different types of apps. So he might have given an app that's quite similar to maybe Instagram because it's looking at picking those icons, that he's doing. And it might be something like that. So you prime it with some examples and then you let it work for a bit. And then you come back and you say, hey, okay, I want to like now take the example that you have given, example that I've given you, and then show me something new with it, right? Like mix and match and show me something new with it. And that's what is happening here. So everything you're seeing here actually is the API. So the whole thing of
Got it.
him entering everything and saying, doing that, that's with the API. I use a lot of, code examples, like the one that you might be sharing right now.
Yeah. So this guy took it like a step like ahead, and he, and like he built a React app just
Yeah.
using instructions, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Uh,
So that's also like all of it is just the API. And that's the beauty of this model, is that it can do any kind of generation, or at least it can do, it's not just relegated to like saying, okay, I'm only going to be doing text, or like generate novels or generate poems and stuff. Like it can even generate code, right? It's able to understand structure to some extent, right, and be able to generate code. And I'm actually super excited for applications like this, because yeah, I mean, would be amazing to do that,
Yeah, yeah. So there is like a whole bunch of applications for things like app generators where people are actually able to do
Yeah.
pretty cool or like neat stuff. Also, people are able to build stuff like this. So where she says after many hours of reading a been to operate in the priming approach, I also now have a GPT-3 demo English to LaTeX equations.
Yeah. So I think this is where I think the most exciting stuff comes in. Like, you learn how to you learn how the model works, and that's something people are still figuring out, like internally, like how do you get this, like how do you prime this in the best way possible? Like you need to do a little bit of understanding of how the model works, and once you do that, you can do some pretty amazing stuff like this. Yeah.
Got it.
Like I
Yeah.
applied for access to the model, and yeah, like I've been wanting to build simple tools like this where you generate, like the code generation thing was my first idea, right? I even had some fun ideas, like I wanted to be able to, so I follow this YouTube channel called Kavita's Kitchen, where she makes all these really fun recipes, and she has a blog. So I've been like, so I wanted to have like a side project, so I've been scraping her blog and then like preparing like simple file, dumps of her blog, and then wanting to feed that to GPT to see, if it can come up with some very unique Indian recipes, just based off her blogs and stuff like that, right? And it's pretty cool that, yeah, I might be able to make something nice with it, where you can just go and click a button, say, okay, I want to have paneer, I feel like eating paneer, I want to eat something buttery, I want to eat something like spicy, and then like hit a button, and then boom, next thing you know, you have like a specific tailor-made Kavita's Kitchen style recipe only for you,
Awesome. All right. So just I was walking towards the end of it. How much of this is actually hype, and how much of this actually is going to have big implications in the kind of technology we're going to see in the future?
I think honestly, like for me, I feel like it's really good. It's where it's kind of moving the needle forward in a big way. How big is something that we really have to wait and see. Really, like I feel a lot of it still remains a bit of hype. Especially now, I'm seeing a lot of VCs on Twitter just being like, "Hey, if you guys are building something with GPT-3, drop us an email." Or some VC is just saying, "Oh, I know, I don't know, like all the programmers are going to be out of a job soon because GPT-3 is going to come and generate this whole thing." I think it's yeah, and I also feel that people need to take time to understand this thing more. Like I don't know what biases this model has, right? That's also a huge concern for me and for a lot of other people also, that we don't know what kind of biases the model has. Because I think some people have been like putting out some tweets where they saw GPT like produce so-called offensive text against certain races and things like that. So, and the guys who made GPT-3, the OpenAI people as well, they're like, we don't know what could be in the model because we trained it on like text from the web, and people put all kinds of shit on the web, and you don't know what this model can do, right? So it's right now a toy, and it's a very fascinating toy. I think we still need to wait it out for a while to see if this toy can actually be like impactful. It is going to be impactful, but how impactful will also will depend on how much we understand this model, how accessible is it going to be for people like us, like developers like us, to actually build something interesting with it. What kind of biases does this model have, and how do you counteract that, right? And just all it is, because right now the only person who has access to this is OpenAI. Nobody else has they have access to it, but you need a shit ton of compute power to put this up, get this up and running, and make it useful. That's the problem. And yeah, you don't know how open they're going to be, in the future, because OpenAI is known for making stuff and not exactly being open.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Very ironic.
Yeah, I know. Like they started off with this mission that, okay, we're gonna build artificial general intelligence out in the open, but yeah, they're slowly morphing into like a commercial entity where, yeah, they're trying to. And this API right now, it's free. Like right now, I can build these applications and share them with people, and it's free, right? But you don't know when they're gonna start, going all this one with people and being like, yeah, start paying like $1.5 for every 1,000 requests, or like, yeah, whatever the fuck. You don't know, right? So it's a lot of it is still there, but yeah, like I'm super excited to, I was just like today in the morning working or playing around with the model a little bit, trying to understand how the whole priming process works with a few
Hmm.
of Kavita's recipes. So yeah, I'll see how far I come along.
Awesome.
Yeah, but
All
I
right,
just I
man.
just
Thanks.
wish, yeah, like I just wish that, yeah, like this thing becomes real, especially all the stuff that we're seeing with code generation, because a
Yeah.
lot of what programmers do, and I think a lot of what designers do, like in most instances, is making these very template apps, or more or less apps that fit some sort of a template, you know. Like even
Yeah.
we've done that. Like some of the more apps that we're building, like they're just simple apps. We just don't want to put a lot of time into it, but because it's sitting and coding it by hand, you have to like put a lot of time into that stuff. And if you have an app that just says generate a screen, with like a video feed embedded in it, right? And then boom, you just have a screen with video feed that solves like 60% of the problem for me, you know, and
Hmm.
for many developers. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. Super exciting, like what this can unlock. Vinay, like, are you able to see some applications that could be useful for you as in as like a designer out there, that such things can unlock for you?
Yes. Yeah, I was just wondering about that actually because uh, there is a position for like low fidelity prototypes in the design process. And of course, with these kind of tools, you already get high fidelity prototypes quite soon, quite fast, right? And it has different purpose, but that changes the nature of the design process that you are doing your user research and bam, you have a high fidelity prototype within few minutes.
Yeah.
But that changes the nature of testing, evaluations, and how we
Yeah.
proceed overall. So I think in that scenario, we need to be more mindful that, yeah, high fidelity prototype is not the final thing, kind of. Or it could also,
Yeah.
I could see it also leading to more high fidelity prototypes. So currently, if we are making three and making a choice by evaluating, maybe with this kind of tools, we are
think
Vinay, there's some sort of like a noise from your end.
oh,
Yeah. No, it
is
seems
it
fine.
better?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Okay.
I was saying that
Still?
Again, I think there's something up with your headphones. So
Oh, I can't really help it right
it's
now.
okay now. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
okay
yeah,
now.
it's okay.
yeah,
Uh, I was just saying that, well, with high fidelity prototypes, it's like the nature of the design process changes a little bit, right?
Yeah.
If we have a user research going on and then we come across an insight, we want to prototype something, then within few minutes we have a high fidelity prototype. Uh,
Yeah.
with these kind of tools, I think we can make it quite fast and more of them. So in
yeah,
a typical design process, we are going, I don't know, with lots of low fidelity prototype, let's say 50, and then we jot it down into probably three high fidelity prototypes. but with
Yeah.
this set of tools, you would end up with 50 high fidelity prototypes and making a choice from there. So it,
Yeah, no, I think also what it does is like it lowers the barrier
Yeah.
to actually for people to start doing such things, right? So right now you need to know how to operate on like Figma or Sketch or XD to be able to build such prototypes. But
yeah,
if it's just about explaining how the app should look, then the barrier to entry is a lot more easier. And I think that is also like a nice thing because the accessibility of something like something I would say design is then it's not sort of like limited to people like who have the tools, but anybody can actually start like to contribute. So I think that is also a very I think it's like a fascinating aspect.
Yeah, like one of the things that's what I was like, one of the first things that struck me when GPT-2, when I got access to the GPT-3 API, was to really do something like that, right? Where like I wanted to build like a very, very simple tool where, let's say, we take like a very simple one-page Figma design, right? And for us, probably like, like accessibility testing is one of the things that we really have to only do once the design gets built into code, and then you give it to somebody and then be like, hey, can you check the accessibility of this, or we need to do certain actions before that. So why not use, like teach GPT-3 how to build like accessible, like I say simple mockups in Swift, right? Where you just have a simple screen, a simple view controller where you're just able to build everything out, and you add some basic accessibility elements from the design itself. And then you are able to like at least get a sense of whether can I use this button here, or can I do something else that will not break the accessibility and stuff like that. So those are simple things to build because you don't really need too much data for GPT-3 to actually understand some of the context. But yeah, I definitely see like a place where, I don't know, like a designer or a developer is able to give instructions to this thing and just be able to get mockups done quite fast than, rather having to have a programmer sit and have that guy build stuff and then to see
Yeah,
if it works or not.
yeah, yeah.
This would be the
Awesome.
ultimate low code, no code stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds great. All right,
Cool.
let's bring this to a wrap. I would like to thank our expert panel for
Expert
actually
panel.
coming on board and really talking to us. I think yeah, it sort of I think offered us a clarity on what GPT-3 is and the implications of it. I hope the listeners also were able to understand a bit better what GPT-3 is. And yeah, if you would like to talk to us about it, explain in the comments about like what will be the things uh, that the implications of this, like like like, do you think this is sort of like a democratizing as tool, or do you think it could be something that could be used for a malicious as a purpose, or do you think it's just a toy and it's just a hype that is only going to be around for a while? So very excited to understand what are your opinions, and yeah, we would look forward to seeing you in another episode of In Between with some more interesting topics.
Bye,
See you.
everyone.
Bye.